Welcome to the Confluence cast presented by Columbus Underground. We are a weekly Columbus-centric podcast focusing on the civics, lifestyle, entertainment, and people of our city. I'm your host, Tim Fulton. This week, how much of ourselves should we put in our work? Today's guest, longtime host, writer, comedian, and filmmaker Dino Tripodis, has a creative journey that is uniquely his own, and he wouldn't have it any other way. Our conversation here takes on an eagle-eye view of his career path, the value of being a multi-hyphenate creator, his approach to creativity, and the importance of authenticity. You can get more information on what we discussed today in the show notes for this episode at theconfluencecast.com. Enjoy the interview. Sitting down here with host, actor, writer, director,
filmmaker. I would love to direct at some point.
Creator.
Wow.
Dino Tripodis.
That creator sounds pretty. Creator.
Indeed. Dino, how are you?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
I'm good. Full disclosure before we get into things, you and I have known each other, I'm not going to say for how long, but since I was in high school.
Yeah.
I went to high school with your daughter.
You did.
And I remember...
You could be my son.
I am old enough, I am young enough to be your son.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How are you? What's going on?
I'm good, son. How are you?
Good. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you introduce yourself to the rare... I imagine the folks outside of Columbus that don't know you, how do you describe yourself?
How do I describe myself? I joke when you said creator, but that's an interesting word. Yeah. Simply stated, just a guy who loves to do just that. I love to create whatever the medium might be. 24 years in radio, and then a little break, and now I'm back. I've created various films, both short and feature length. One which we're currently engaged in, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
Stand up for a lot of years. I still get ideas for jokes. I still have a notebook, and I still write ideas, and I still perform. I've got a couple of benefits coming up. I did something a couple weeks ago, so I still like to keep my foot in stand up. Love to write, and I call myself the reluctant actor as well.
Okay.
I did a horror film up in Meadville, Pennsylvania a few months ago, a SAG after low budget horror film called Pig Hill.
Okay.
And I got to play this really completely out of my element, broad, loud, nasty character, Giovanni Vendetti, the king of Pig Hill.
Okay.
So it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you can draw me out of that shell, then I'll embrace it. But when I say, "Why don't you be in it?" I'm like,
yeah,
I'd rather write it and you do it.
Well, and there's a certain amount of again, full disclosure, your daughter and I went to theater school, a specialized vocational theater program.
You did.
And what I've since discovered, since not being in theater, I'm not necessarily interested in being the guy on stage if it's not me on stage anymore. But I now have an 8-year-old daughter, and you sort of see, as soon as you can convince them you are behind this veneer, whether that be a costume or makeup or whatever, the ability to take that on is a lot easier.
Right.
And I don't know if in your sort of, even in hosting, right, that you walked in here today and it was a little bit like, hey, how you doing? Whereas when I see you in your home, it's always like, hey, what's going on? What are we working on? And you're almost waiting for the microphone. I'm trying to talk to you a little bit about your creative process and how you pull yourself out.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I walked in here, this is your world, so I was walking in quietly and respectfully, because I don't know other than you, who I'm coming up in meeting and so forth and so
Right.
on. So, I try not to enter a room and be on.
Okay.
I don't like to be on.
But we've both
all the
met
time.
those guys, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I can definitely, when I see that, okay, I got to be on. I can, this is what they want. I can switch, and I find that a lot in radio with appearances in radio and definitely stand up. People have an expectation sometimes.
Yeah.
And of there's who you think you are and what they think you are and what you are, and sometimes the two don't always mesh. So you've got to say, okay, well, they think I'm this way, and that's probably my fault.
And it's kind of okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm going to turn it on.
It is an
Right.
extension of you.
Mm-hmm.
It is an extension of you, so it's fine. But
Yeah.
I'm saying, walking in here today, hey, I'm coming into Tim's world, and I'm a guest on his podcast. He's not on my podcast, which we forgot to mention the podcast.
Please.
Whiskey Business.
Yes.
Whiskey.
And how'd you start it?
Just wanted to. I think doing a podcast would be fun. We've done it for now a little over 7 years.
Okay.
So, it was the time when there wasn't a million podcasts, but there were a decent amount of podcasts, and we still like to do it, and I love to do it, and we're not getting rich or famous off of it, but we are being satisfied creatively by doing it. We love to do it, and I think that's part of the fun of it.
Absolutely.
It's on the Evergreen Podcast Network now out of Cleveland the last couple of years, so that's helped boost our presence and get more subscribers. So yeah, we used to do it weekly, and that was very aggressive. But now we're doing about 2 a month because everybody's so busy with every other thing that they've got going on. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the thing that I have told other people who are like, I want to start a podcast. What do I need to know, or what do I need to do? And the biggest thing is, like, you can Google everything. Like, it's not difficult, but consistency is absolutely key.
The key.
We are, and maybe this is my mea culpa to my listeners, that I went dark sort of from like, the last episode was in like April, but really the last episode was like November of 2022. Jump back in with all the city council candidates and the mayoral candidates, and now you, I think, will be the third episode after that, but only the second guest. And trying to get back to
and not a candidate,
and not a candidate. You're not running.
I'm not. It's funny. Over the length of time I've been in Columbus, I have been approached at certain times for certain things, and I said no. No, another story, another time.
Yeah, okay.
But no, not my thing. I don't, and definitely not these days.
What? Just the political climate, you mean?
Just the political climate in general, yeah.
Okay.
It's just, I can deal with the political climate on my own and have my own opinions and have my own thoughts and get involved in my own debates. But to step into that role right now, and if that sounds like, well, you don't want to make a difference, you don't want to make a change, yeah, I do. That's why I don't want to do it now, because I find it seems virtually impossible to evoke any type of serious change right now, and things but I don't even know why we're going down this rabbit hole.
And we hope that it'll get better, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Let's go back a little bit and we can talk about it, because you've had a multi-hyphenate sort of career, right? But I think what most people know you for is your time at Sunny 95. It's the biggest amplifier that you've had, right?
Right, for sure. None of this other stuff I think would have come into play if it weren't for Sunny 95, and that was a happy accident. I've told you personally that story before. I was a stand-up comedian. I was a guest on the show. I would make frequent appearances there. Then one year, when I was living out in L.A. pursuing my stand-up career, they said, would you like to be a co-host with Bob Simpson, a guy who I had popped on the show with, who was hosting the show? And I said no like 3 times. They finally wore me down, and I decided, you know what? Speaking of my daughter, who was turning 13 years of age at the time, I go, this might be a good I've been on the road, living in L.A. It might be a good year to come back and be closer to my daughter, work, add something to the resume. And when it doesn't work out, okay, nice try. Go back to L.A., but I'll have this year of bonding with my kid.
Because it was a contract, right?
Yeah, there was kind of a contract. Yeah,
Okay.
there was a contract, but the contracts still to this day are always in favor of the radio station. You sign a 4-year contract, but if they want to dump you after year 1 or 2, they can find cause. That's just the nature of the beast.
Okay.
And after the first year, this show didn't fly that I was on. It was Bob Simpson and Company, and it was actually creatively a great show. It just
But you were not on the marquee, to be clear.
It's Bob Simpson and Co. I was part of Co.
You were the Co. Okay.
I was part of the Co. And Bob was let go, and we were left, myself, Stacey McKay, Mike Elliott, who now is with iHeart and the program director. He was our producer at the time, Clark Donnelly. And we all just said, you know what? They're probably going to, that was in October the following year. And I said, they're probably going to get a new morning show in January. So let's just pretend like every show is our last one and have a blast.
Okay.
Doing it. Everyone, okay. We did that. There was some chemistry there. The ratings went up, and in January, when we got pulled into the general manager's office, I was waiting for the thank you for this. Sorry, this experiment didn't work out. And instead, they offer a 4-year contract for Dino and Stacey, and the rest, as they say, is history.
And so then 23 more years of that.
24 more years, and different because Stacey left, and Stacey got a surprise, pregnancy late in life, and she wasn't expecting that, and she took time off to do that, and then she left and went to another station, then came back, and then I left, and now I came back, and so but this is definitely this is it. There's no more. Anybody that leaves now is going to be gone.
They're gone.
Gone at this point. But yeah.
And do you? I don't necessarily want to get into a conversation about the industry as a whole, and I'm going to have to figure out at some point. One of my first podcast interviews ever was with Johnny DiLoretto.
I love Johnny.
I do too. Talking about what it's like being in that field, because TV, morning news and morning radio are not that different, right?
They only in that you actually have to be presentable for morning TV. For morning radio, if you've whatever you've done the night before and you want to sleep an extra 20 minutes and roll out of bed and put on a hat and go, you can.
Right.
Yeah.
But there is this constant feeling of like, oh, the hammer might just come down today. And I guess my question is, do you think the Columbus market is any different in terms of how it's dealt with, or what you think you dealt with?
I can't speak to television, but I can tell you in respects to radio, it's one of the few markets where there seems to be a deep-seated loyalty. I mean, there are more longer running entities of hosts in this market than I've seen in others. It's not uncommon for a gig in radio to last 3 or 4 years, and then something happens and they move on. You've got guys like Jerry Elliott, who have been at QFM for 30 plus years. Woody did COL for forever and a day. The Morning Zoo, Dave and Jimmy, longtime established entities. Myself, a 24-year run at Sunday Night. Those are to have that many entities of a show from a host perspective last that long in some way, shape, or form is insane. And especially in one market, let alone have one of those people be a long standing entity is one thing, but to have like 3 and 4 different radio stations that have this longevity, it's nuts.
Well, and I don't know this, is that there is you have worked under like a new owner before, and there's been some consolidation of that market, right?
We are Saga Communications.
Right.
We've always been Saga Communications. Okay. We've never been bought out by anybody. The CEO of our company, Ed Christian, who started the company, passed away last year. But the mantle has been picked up and taken and run with to keep Saga Communications Saga.
Okay.
Columbus is one of their bigger markets for Saga Communications. Columbus, Milwaukee, Norfolk, Virginia. They don't have big stations in New York or Chicago, and they've done well with that. Being middle market, a middle market radio station entity. Saga Communications is one of the few radio entities that's actually still trading well on the stock market. So so there you go. They're doing something right.
My background, at least from a journalism perspective, is in print, and there's been such a consolidation there, right?
It's in print?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically Gannett, at least for what we experience here in Columbus. And I guess I had assumed maybe that there was some consolidation happening in the media in other forms. Mm-hmm. That is happening to an extent, right? Like QFM got bought at some point.
We own QFM.
You own QFM?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We bought QFM.
Okay.
So, when you say in that respects, yes, we have picked up some smaller. No, QFM is not a smaller station. QFM was one of our bigger purchases. We have QFM, Sunny 95, Rewind, and Mix.
Okay.
We have 4 stations. So, in that respect, yes, there has been consolidation and grabbing other entities to put into your bundle, for lack of a better word. Just like iHeart has, this station, this station, this station, this station, and this station. They're huge.
Well, and they're the beast, right? I mean, they're the ones using David Jimmy and disseminating their voice across markets.
Right.
Do you think it's important for, and I think I know the answer to this question already, right? Do you think it's important to have local hosts, personalities, folks doing not only morning shows, but also just the content throughout the day?
Yeah, I do. I think at the end of the day, which I hate that expression, but I'm going to use it anyway. I think local is important. Mm-hmm. Let's be honest. People can get music wherever and however they want, anytime they want. So, and especially in respects to morning shows, I still think there's a local element, but it's getting harder. I mean, there's with so many choices being out there. I mean, you got to work a little harder and a little longer in order to keep yourself in the game. I mean, they have options. So, but some people still like identifying with a morning show, and some people, longtime listeners who have been, they were very gracious when I left and sad. They were even more gracious when I came back, and that amazed me. That amazed me because it's I've never understood people who thought that they were it. Sitting on top of a mountain, I am the king. Yeah, no, you go away. People forget you. I mean, it's just like that's, and I've always believed that to be true. Oh, you're gonna be here forever. No, I'm not. I'm not I'm not the king. There is no king. I just happen to be sitting on this particular throne for a little bit, but I could easily be knocked off and forgotten and move. And when I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying it's the nature of the beast. They go, oh, he's gone. I'll never listen to radio again until next week.
Right.
And the next person comes in and they go, I love the new guy. I love the new guy. And that's just the nature of the beast. So if you think that nobody can replace, I hate that. Nobody will be able to replace. Sure you can.
Yeah.
Sure you can be replaced.
Let's switch gears a little bit, still staying in the radio space.
All right.
What time do you have to get up in the morning in order to do a morning show?
We used to start at 5 in the morning, and that was brutal.
Okay.
Now we start at 6, which I know it's only an hour difference, but it's amazingly different.
Okay.
I happen to live about, if I catch all the green lights, 3.5 minutes.
Okay,
from
not
the
bad.
Station. So 5.5 if I get a couple of reds. So 4:15. First alarm goes off at 4:15.
Okay.
I can get up at 4:15. I have another one that goes off at 4:30, and then final warning 4:45. That's if
that's your rushing alarm.
No, the rushing alarm is there's a 12-minute drill
Okay.
Tim, I've got it down to a 12-minute drill.
All right.
At 5 a.m. At 5 a.m. there's a 12-minute drill. I can go in, brush my teeth, wash my face, maybe not get a shower, but there's a 12-minute drill where I can gulp down an espresso coffee, boom, 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 and be out the door by 5:15.
There you go.
Yeah. Now I don't like the 12-minute drill, but I know it's available to me. So 4:45 is the cutoff as far as leisurely time. A little more rushed.
Yeah.
But there is a 12-minute drill.
What else don't folks know about that process? They've seen at this point video of folks sitting at a desk and doing their thing and I don't remember what they're called, but reading the interstitial, like the house ads and all the sponsorships and reading the traffic and doing that. But what do you find that people are sort of surprised by when they hear about doing morning radio?
When people come in and actually we have guests that come and visit, sometimes they go through and they're always amazed that it's not scripted.
Yeah.
That what we're saying is not scripted, that oh my gosh, you guys just, and what I tell people all the time is it's harder than you think to make it look and sound that easy.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, oh, what do? You talk for 3.5 minutes and then you play a song and your job's easy. Okay, well, you know what? You come in and day out and do it, Monday through Friday, and come up and have, and come up with thoughts and ideas and be fresh and be original and continue to do that day. Yeah, you go ahead and try.
Well, and also you are pushing right. So forgive me for folks who may not have been in Columbus very long and have not listened to Sunny 95. Right. It is, in my head, the radio station that your mom listens to in the minivan in terms of content most of the day.
Most of the day, but that's not necessarily true anymore. I mean, that was probably when you were in high school.
Is it still called Hot AC?
It's adult contemporary.
Okay.
Adult contemporary. We mix in a little bit of Hot AC in there. I mean, we're playing.
Is Amy Grant still in
rotation? No, she is not. Okay, that's a fair question. That's a fair question because you're not going to hear. There was a Sunny at the time where Amy Grant and Celine Dion and Michael Bolton and that world was Sunny, and it's gotten a little bit more progressive as far as the music.
Got it. So it's much. So, but I will certainly, if I listen for an hour, I will hear Michelle Branch.
No.
Okay.
No.
That is me missing. Okay.
No, you will not. No. You will hear, if you listen for an hour, you will hear Miley Cyrus.
Okay.
You will hear.
But I'm hearing Wrecking Ball. I'm not hearing.
You're hearing Flowers.
Okay.
Actually, you're hearing Flowers a lot.
Okay. Fair. Because that give the people what they want.
Yeah. You're hearing that in rotation quite a bit. There was a little bit of a throwback on Sunny 95 in the last year or so where Delilah came back. And Love Songs with Delilah came back at nighttime. And that was a staple at Sunny 95 for a long time.
Indeed. I'm sorry, you just unlocked a core memory of...
She's back at nighttime, broadcasting from the farm.
Okay.
Wherever the hell she does it, I don't know.
Well, she's syndicated.
Yeah,
too.
she's syndicated, yeah.
But was she gone for a time? Sunny wasn't subscribing.
Sunny wasn't subscribing, and then
Got it.
And then she came back. Yeah, so that's a little bit of a throwback to back in the day.
That is the car talk of adult contemporary, right? Like it is just okay.
Delilah.
There you go. Mm-hmm. What I was trying to get to was I have always been impressed with your ability to treat that audience in such a way that you're able to sort of like walk up to the line.
Right.
You're able to be like, hey, I might be your brother. I might be the guy you want to date. I'm saying things that you certainly aren't going to say, but I'm not offending you at all.
No. And it's a type of thing where when you're walking up to the line and the parents in the car and they're laughing because they get it, they know how close I've come to the line.
Yeah.
And if there are children in the back seat, they don't know that there's been a line, and they definitely don't know that something's been crossed. And,
Right.
And if anything, they're saying, "Why are you laughing, Mom?"
Yeah. Well, it's not even like the Shrek jokes, right? It's
right.
not
No.
even the like, I'm saying something that goes over the kid's head.
Right.
You're doing the ones that the 13-year-olds isn't necessarily going to get.
I try to. But I know what the line is, and I remarkably have not
It's a honed skill, though.
crossed it,
right?
And been fined or fired because I said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But that's nobody more surprised than myself. I said, I gotta do something. I gotta do something so I don't jinx myself. And tomorrow morning I'm gonna say the wrong thing, and I'm gonna be, damn it, Tim.
He walked me up to it. Talk a little bit about your other endeavors. We've talked about the podcast. We talked about Sunny. I do credit you with giving me an IMDb credit.
How so?
It was in Funny Man.
Oh, the very first short film. That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
I am in one of your films.
Oh my God, you are.
And you are not the
Sorry.
It's okay. You're not the only film that I have. I think you are actually my second and most recent credit, meaning I only have 2 credits on IMDb. But talk about first of all, how you got into film, and where you find your sweet spot in it now.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Funny Man was the first short film that I ever did, and just to show you how naive and not stupid, but just it's a 42-minute short film. That's not a short film. A short film is 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Okay.
A 42-minute film, at that point, you just should have made a feature film and moved on. But I still like the Funny Man for some of the elements that are in it. I like the story behind it. It was presented to me by someone else, gave me the story, and I said, I'll do this if you let me rework it a little bit, because the concept was there. He wanted to do something about a comedian who was kind of in the throes of it, not had missed that boat to big success and fame, and was capitalizing on the other perks that the job would bring, in respects to women and drinking and so forth and so on. So in that respects, I'm proud of it that way. And there's still a great scene in that film with Jennifer Schaff and myself at the bar talking about the definition of the one, romantically speaking, which I honestly think, and me, Tim, I'm very critical of everything I do. I think that particular scene can hold up just about anywhere as far as a dynamic between two people talking about love and the one. I think it's by far one of my favorite scenes.
What aspect of that, though? Are you talking about the writing? Or are you talking about
and the acting and the performances? Yeah, there was just
the two things you were fully in control of.
Yes,
you're proud of.
No, I didn't direct it. Mike McGrainer directed that, but I was. There's when you're making film, there's a lot of deliver 3 lines and cut, and but this was literally one shot for 8 minutes. In that's uncommon.
Yeah,
where we didn't move and cut away from something else. It was very unique in that perspective. So you could actually feel like you were in that moment in the Funny Man. But yes, that was the very first film that I actually wrote and produced and put out there. The very first film I ever did, I thought would never come to the light of day.
Okay.
It was filmed in 1988.
Okay.
It was a horror film, and it's called Heartland of Darkness, and it languished in obscurity for 30-plus years. And then somebody finally got it together, because in the horror genre, there was a woman by the name of Linnea Quigley called Queen of the Screams.
Okay.
And this is the type of horror film that they call them satanic panic films,
Okay.
There's a genre, there's a world.
Yeah.
And this film fit in that world. And after 35 years, it was unearthed and brought out on Blu-ray and DVD and streaming as we speak. And you can see a very young, in his 20s, Dino Tripodis. No, maybe 29. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not good. And yet, and then again, you're always amazed, like, oh my God, this is the worst possible thing that could happen to me. And then you read these reviews from critics in that genre.
Yeah.
And they're
in that genre. You're great.
They're complimenting you. They're finally like, I'm like, what? You know, all I see is that, you know, there was this script and at the time, nothing but earnest.
You were in LA at the time.
No, it was shot here.
Okay.
It was shot here. It was shot in Granville. Granville dubbed for Copperton, Ohio.
Okay.
Where there are a string of horrible satanic murders.
Well,
and yeah. So yeah, I've dabbled with film, but then to where we are now.
Yeah.
4 years ago, we did The Street Where We Live, which was a labor of love.
Streaming now.
Streaming now as we speak on Amazon and Tubi and a bunch of other things. Very proud of that movie. Won Best Feature at the Glass City Film Festival up in, was it Detroit or Toledo? I can't remember.
Okay.
Where. Anyway. And has been expanded to a bigger audience via YouTube. I think YouTube has something where they actually can get movies, and that expanded it to a whole new audience. Very proud of that film. Mm-hmm. I co-wrote it, produced it, and I'm in it as an actor, reluctant actor. I play Ben, and I'm very proud of that film, which leads us to where we are now with Down to the Felt, which is by far the most ambitious and biggest thing I've ever been involved with as far as a independent film goes.
Okay.
That starts shooting in April of 2024, and we are currently raising the funds for it as we speak. We have a big fundraiser November the 15th at Central Grip, which is a great facility that is going to be part of our family when we start making the film.
It'll be a shoot location, or
yeah, their equipment, their people, their gear, their talents. Central Grip.
I wasn't familiar with the company.
It's they make movies. They make videos. They do projects, and
well, now the name Grip makes sense.
Yeah,
so.
they're in the mix. That's where we're having the actual fundraiser on November the 15th, and it's for investors. It's for investors in the film. We are still looking for investors to finish off our $1.5 million budget. I've never had a $1.5 million budget. And this film initially was written with the idea of just to sell the screenplay and move on.
Yeah.
That was our plan. We wrote it during the pandemic because we were so stifled creatively with nothing to do during the pandemic that my friends Ralph Scott and John Osbeck brought this concept of this. It was I think their working title was 2 Minute Warning.
Okay,
talking about how the last 2 minutes in any game of sports is the most exciting. You know, football, 2 minute warning. The Kentucky Derby, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so forth. The last 2 minutes are a basketball game. You know, why bother watching an entire basketball game? It comes down to the last 2 minutes, and it was kind of the basic premise of this. And I like the idea because the initial character was a computer geek who got involved in some gambling issues.
Okay.
And once again, I don't know why I keep doing this, but I like the idea, but can we? And we started changing it and adapting it to where we are now, which is still a compulsive gambler, but that's what he is. He is a compulsive gambler. And he is on a bad roll. In the beginning of the film, he loses the down payment on a house for him and his fiance in a poker game. He gets fired from his job. He doubles down on a basketball bet. He loses that, you know. So now he's in deep, and rather than be, take the chance of being killed by the mob since he can't pay his debt, whatever the case might be, he has a happy accident on a meeting with a psychotic but devout Jewish hitman.
Okay.
And the hilarity ensues.
So it's a comedy.
It's a dark comedy. There's dark comedy in it, a lot of action. It's called Down to the Felt, and he in a drunken stupor, but not completely drunken, he makes a deal with the hitman. you kill me in 2 weeks, so I am legitimately dead, and my mother can get my insurance money. But I want 2 weeks to take it down to the felt. This is what I got left in my kitty. I want 2 weeks to take a run at it. If I win, yay, more money for mom. If I lose, she still gets the insurance money.
Some and certainly I'm not saying it's not an original story, but to picture it, it's some variation of Uncut Gems and Leaving Las Vegas.
Sure,
almost,
a little
right?
bit of you draw from all kinds of elements, and especially in that where Mississippi Grind was another gambling movie. Rounders, there's comparisons galore. Lucky Aces, I can't remember.
I love Rounders, and it's much underappreciated.
Mm-hmm. So there's elements about it, but the characters are, and then he meets a woman. Scotty Thompson is on board from NCIS and Grey's Anatomy and Blacklist, and she's done a ton of stuff. Salva Scusa will be at our fundraiser. A lot of people, if I say Salva Scusa, like who? Journeyman actor who has been around forever, starting with the 70s, Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And more recently, Lyle Crocodile, as far as his voice talents. He's been in Spaceballs. He's been a character actor on television forever.
Okay.
He was, this show is before your time, but if anybody my age is listening, there was a show called Soap on TV back in the day. He was the priest on Soap. So he was a main character of that, and he was also the voice on the loudspeaker in MASH.
No kidding.
On a TV show. Anytime you heard the loudspeaker announcements,
that was him.
That was him, and he also played several parts. Had character roles on MASH throughout different seasons.
Yeah.
He played different things.
Well, and certainly journeyman actor, right?
Yeah, like I said, he's been around since the 70s. He was part of our table read. We did this massive table read that Cullen Douglas, our producer in L.A., put together with actors from New York, Atlanta, Chicago, L.A. We all came together and did this big Zoom read. So because we, as the writers, wanted to hear what it sounded like. Mm-hmm. So Cullen put this together. And it was Cullen, by the way, who convinced us, like, you guys shouldn't sell this script. You should make this movie.
Okay.
I'm like, okay. Now we're in too deep. We have to. But Sal was one of the actors on that Zoom read. And as soon as we got done with that script, he called Cullen immediately and said, I'm throwing my hat in the ring for Anthony. He plays, so Sal's playing Anthony the bookie in this film, the good bookie. I call him the good bookie. He's like a mentor to him.
The Jewish bookie with the heart of gold.
No, he's an Italian bookie.
Jewish hitman with the heart of gold.
No, the Jewish hitman does not have a heart of gold. He's just a very devout Jew who also has a death wish. But he can't kill himself, because if he does, he won't be able to be buried with the righteous. Do you see where this is going?
I do now.
So our lead has a death wish. The Jewish hitman has a death wish. He's hoping he comes across a strong enough adversary to take him out so that he can be buried with the righteous. But he can't kill himself. He could kill himself any time, but he's not going to be able to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. It's very, very conflicting.
It's a film. Right. It's a lot. It's supposed to be a lot.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, hearing this, and this is a new thought, so apologies.
No apologies needed.
Why do you keep writing yourself into movies?
Why do I keep writing myself into movies?
Because I'm
not in this movie.
Well, I know that. I'm sorry. I'm not. You're not writing yourself as an actor in, right?
No.
But like, you're also not a computer geek.
No, I'm not.
And you were like, let's make him a gambler,
right?
And sorry, inside knowledge.
I'm a gambler.
You gamble,
right?
Yeah, you like to do that. Also, funny man. About a comedian who didn't like you are successful in your own right, but you were not successful in stand-up comedy.
No, I wouldn't. The funny man is like, that was like an inside purge, if you will, because there was an opportunity. There was an opportunity at stand-up to go to the next level. I always make the comparison when I did my first national TV appearance on Comic Strip Live on Fox. Who was on that show that night? I can tell you who was on that show. I have no idea. I can't tell you.
Please.
It was Dino Tripodis.
All
right. Sarah Silverman.
Okay.
Louis C.K.
Okay.
And Dave Attell.
All
right.
And I know who Dave Attell is, and
You know
I bet
David-
most people do, but that's the least known of those people.
Yeah,
right.
Louis C.K., Sarah Silverman have gone on to amazing careers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
so is Dave Attell, to be clear.
Yeah, by all means.
Yeah.
But, and notoriety and some good things, some not so good things. And that was the choice I made. When I decided to take that 4-year contract with Sunny 95 and not go back to L.A., and I remember to this day, here's a little inside story that I haven't told a lot of people.
Okay.
The weekend before I was starting at Sunny 95, back in 1994, okay, Bob Simpson, who was the host of the show, came out to the Funny Bone. At that point, comedically speaking, I was a well-oiled machine. I mean, I knew what I was doing because that is a muscle that.
And you're doing it on a regular basis.
that
and we didn't get
constantly
into the muscle part of like
Right.
hosting and doing all that enough.
You
but
know, I
yes.
was doing my show. I was headlining at the Funny Bone the weekend before I started at Sunny 95. And after the show, Bob Simpson comes up to me and he says, "Don't do it." I go, "Don't do what?" He says, "Don't take the job."
Was he fired at that point?
No.
He hadn't even been fired yet.
We were starting our show.
Okay.
That we were embarking on day one of the year that would be our show.
Oh.
That following Monday. He tells me
From the jump, the start.
he tells me the Thursday after I've moved myself back to Columbus, Ohio from LA, and I'm starting at 75 Monday. He tells me, "Don't do it. This is what you should be doing." And that was always been a crossroads for me. That was a choice that I made. I did take the job, and I did go back to LA on a regular basis and perform at the Comedy Store and do my sets at the Improv, thinking that this experiment in radio wouldn't last. It did. So I made a conscious choice. Don't feel sorry for me.
I don't feel sorry.
Don't feel sorry for me that I did not become a comedic giant.
I don't.
It was my choice.
No, but it's the theory of core memories of like things happen and you're like, I'm always going to remember this. And you don't know that you will.
Right.
But sometimes you do know that you will. And you drove home that night after him seeing you and you had a minute.
I did.
You had a minute and you weren't just to sort of like, I think this context is kind of important here. You had come back partly, let's say, I'll credit to Danielle, let's call it 45% for your daughter, but 55% for like, this is steadier and still performing.
Right.
I've already made the choice to be in LA. I'm making the choice to be back.
I didn't leave LA. I kept everything there.
Exactly. Okay. So there's all that. You've got that going, and there's this person saying, a person I assume you respect.
Oh, sure.
Saying, "Hey, don't come and do this."
Yeah.
And and guess what? A year later, he was absolutely right. But then you, over the course of a couple of months, were able to convince the powers that be.
I wasn't trying to.
But you were saying, "Fuck it." You were literally saying, like, "Hey, whatever. I just want to do my work.
Yeah, let's just have fun and try to pretend like each show's our last." And as a result, that spontaneity and that enthusiasm carried through.
And I guess the point I'm trying to get to here is that creativity finds a way.
Right.
It is.
It's like water.
Yeah.
Water always finds a way in.
It is, because I want to ask functional questions about like where's the 1.5 go? Like, is this about how much money? Is this about the amount of money that each actor gets? Is this a certain production? Is that guy in LA who's your producer getting a cut? And what are the potential payoffs for investors? All super important questions.
All super important
and for
things.
a podcast at another time.
Yeah, there is a document and a pitch deck and an explanation of the ROI, the return on investment, for anybody that does get invested in the film. We are seeking investors. We also have fiscal sponsorship with Wild Goose Creative. Mm-hmm. So if people are looking to do a tax deductible donation, that can come back to us, but also help themselves out as well. That there's all kind of options available. Mm-hmm. I want to go back around because I took the very, very long way around to your question. You asked, why do I put myself into these worlds? One, There's a very simple rule of writing, which
Write
is
what you know.
write what you know and write who you know. And when I suggested we change the world of this situation and put it into this gambling world with and different types of relationships, it's a world that I know. So when I write those words, or when we wrote those words, but we all contributed. We all when you talk about we all contributed to the script, but there were certain parts that I got this.
Yeah.
So everybody.
But you didn't believe you could believably write computer nerd who is.
I probably could have.
Yeah.
I probably could because it wasn't about his job.
Okay.
So much because his job, this guy's day job that he gets fired from, is working for a produce company.
Okay.
Okay. But
So but you make sure this is part of the writing process, right?
Right.
You make sure, hey, does this technically check out? Is this reasonable for this person to say in that opening scene where you see him not doing great at his job? Does that make sense? Right. So that you're not making basically a shitty film.
Right.
That one part that folks can't get over. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Everything about it is very believable. The characters are very well drawn out, and that's the one thing that everybody has, fortunately, and thank you, has commented on is that the dialogue seems authentic and real. It's what you want in a movie. It sounds like people talking, which is, I know, ridiculous to say, but you watch movies where.
I constantly am watching, we're in the spooky season now, right? And so I'm watching Halloween movies, and I'm like, that's bad acting. And I'm like, that's bad writing.
Right.
That's not, they're doing fine, but they're dealing what they were sold.
And that's when everybody on the Zoom, when we did the Zoom read, all these actors were so complimentary. I said, but they also said, you guys made it easy because the writing was so good. So you're right, they do go hand in hand. Actors can do great things with good writing, and I am proud of this writing. And I want to mention John Osbeck and Ralph Scott. John is our director; he's going to be directing it. Ralph is producing it and has written it along with myself and John. Cullen Douglas is our producer in L.A. He's the one who changed changed our way of thinking, and has been remarkable. He's also an actor as well.
Okay,
he's been on a ton of stuff. In fact, he's got, I don't know when this drops, but he's on an episode of Quantum Leap, which is starting back up on NBC. He's on an upcoming episode.
In a new episode.
Okay.
Episode of Quantum. I'm an originalist.
So am I. But I want to watch it because Cullen's in it.
Yeah.
So he's great. He's great, and he was the first one that said he was, with the script, he did it. He read it as a favor to Ralph. Him and Ralph were friends for years, and he read it as a favor. And okay, he even says, he admits it. I'm gonna read it because that's Ralphie. And then he read it okay, yeah.
But isn't a little bit? I don't know what a script sells for. Do you have a concept of that?
Scripts can sell from anything from,
what's low end, hey, we're taking, not even taking control of it, but yes, we intend to produce this at some point.
That's the part. That's the funny thing about scripts. I got friends who are screenwriters that live here locally who have sold the same script repeatedly because a studio will take a script and they will buy it and they will option it, and
it expires.
And
the
option
expires.
It expires, and so somebody can that writer can sell that screenwriter can sell that script again.
What are they selling that script for?
Oh, ours?
No, sorry, the script that your friends have written. Just as an example of
this
what
the Down to the Felt.
No, sorry, a script that they have sold.
Oh, I
don't know what a script sells.
I don't know. I don't know what they've made, but they've managed to pay the rent or the mortgage and stay comfortable.
There you go.
By selling certain scripts, and some scripts have been purchased by studios because they don't want the script out there, because they have they have a very similar type of project that maybe isn't as good of a script or as good as a film, so they'll buy this film
and they can incorporate some things in if they want.
No, they just want it off the market.
Okay.
They don't want anybody else to make this script because they have a film just like this. So there's all kind of fun thing. And that was the goal. Let's just write this great script and sell it, and then we'll start. Because we have other ideas in the pipeline, which we do.
Okay.
But now we're making a movie. So in April, we're going to shoot for 24 to 27 days and see what the hell happens.
There you go. I have so many more questions about.
I know, but I want
that production process.
I do, and I want to be a little bit of a whore if I can be.
Please.
For just a moment and hang on a second and tell people if they are interested in being a part of this fundraising event, you can go to info@bigdealpictures.com.
I end every interview by asking 2 questions.
Sure.
And this is going to diverge hugely from, I hope, what we've talked about. What do you think Columbus is doing well? And what do you think Columbus is not doing so well?
I think they're doing an excellent job in continuing to grow culturally, creatively, and socially. I think this is a great place to live, having been here since, cemented back here since 1994 and able to watch the growth and watch it not only grow, but not necessarily stagnate, just continue. And when something does seem to be a little sluggish, you don't see them giving up on it just yet. You see neighborhoods over the years that were dismissed and seemingly written off being rejuvenated and brought back to life. So that's what I think Columbus continues to do great on a regular basis, is grow and prosper and don't if something burns down to the ashes, don't just leave it ashes. As something rises, some sort of nice Ohio phoenix rises from those ashes, and I think that's great. Yeah.
What is it not doing so well?
What is it not doing so well? They're not winning any hockey games.
Okay. Fair. That's fair.
They're not winning any Stanley Cups. No, that's one particular entity. I'm a Blue Jackets fan.
Fair.
I had tickets for 10 years, season tickets for 10 years in the club level. I languished, and I still go from time to time, but it's frustrating when you see a new team like the Knights in Vegas that have been playing hockey for an hour and they have a Stanley Cup. So what do I think that what was the original question again?
What is Columbus not doing so well?
What is
as
Columbus
as a community, as a city?
Not doing so well. That's a tough one for me because there's things that I bitch about.
Yeah.
Our infrastructure. But then I also see them attempting to fix that. I would like to see, the one thing I really would like to see them do better and really get on is a rail system.
Okay.
I would like to see that rail system come to be. I would like to get on a train and go to Cleveland or Cincinnati or even Chicago from here. I would like to see that rail system come to be because I've heard talk about it for decades upon decades, and that's the one thing that I haven't seen come to fruition. Do it before I die. Let me get on a train. Let me get on a choo-choo. Let me get on a choo-choo before it's all said and done.
All right. Dino, thank you.
No, Tim, thank you.
I'm going to record that one more time because of that.
All right.
Dino, thank you.
No, Tim, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Confluence Cast presented by Columbus Underground. Again, you can get more information on what we discussed today in the show notes for this episode at theconfluencecast.com. Please rate, subscribe, share this episode of the Confluence Cast with your friends, family, contacts, enemies, your favorite filmmaker. If you're interested in sponsoring the Confluence Cast, get in touch with us. We can be reached by email at info@theconfluencecast.com. Our theme music was composed by Benji Robinson. Our producer is Philip Cogley. I'm your host, Tim Fulton. Have a great week.